Hey boomers, welcome to the video, and this is gonna be my first what if Naruto hit his true strength, hit his strength. So sorry I haven't really uploaded. It took me quite a while to write my first scripts, but I've recently come to realize that script writing is not for me. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Tonight the sky had held a special type of darkness. It seemed to consume the noise that belonged to the village beneath it. The night sky stood still as though expecting something to happen. Although not having any ninja training, multiple civilians sensing the ominous presence raised their head towards the sky. What's going on? Did something happen? Is the village under attack? And then, a powerful roar was heard all over the village. All the heads turned in the direction of the sound. When their eyes arrived at the source of the noise, they spotted 9 orange tails that peeked out of the horizon of Konoha. The entire village seemed to gasp. No way, this can't be possible. Is that the... The beast rose and another shaking roar was heard all over the village. The demon stood, creating a shadow over Konoha. The fox towered at least 100 meters over the hidden village, its 9 tails flailing, its huge figure covered completely in dark orange fur, and its face wore an expression of hatred, its blood-red eyes. But instead of the usual slits that occupied the space, was a black circle in the center and 3 black tomo revolving around it. But this wasn't the strangest thing. What was weird was that a figure stood on top of the mighty beast, known as the Nine-Tailed Fox. The figure wore a jet black dragon mask with bronze horns that sprouted from both sides of the dragon's head. On each side of the dragon's mouth were bronze whiskers that fell downwards, and on the forehead a third eye, and behind the mask was a braid of pure white hair. He also wore a hooded black cloak with the hood down that reached up to his knees. Underneath he wore grey pants that tightened around his ankle. Yeah, practically joggers. Yeah, I'm adding joggers to the Naruto world, I guess. But like ninja pants, right? On his feet he had black ninja sandals, and on both sides of his waist were sheathted daggers. Sheathted daggers. Okay, remember about the daggers, like, just keep in mind that he does have them. Seeing the full form of the beast, every villager began to panic, trying to get as far away as they could. The masked man, noticing the chaos, let out a little chuckle. "Do it," the mystery man commanded. As if they had agreed what "do it" meant previously, the Nine-Tail opened its mouth and began channeling the ball of chakra in front of his face. "I guess we have to save the village, hey Kushina," stated a blonde that stood on the fort's face. The man was about 5'8", had spiky blonde hair with the blue eyes that sparkled like the sea. He wore a dark blue long-sleeve undershirt with similar dark blue pants that had white bandages wrapped around the end of his ankle. He had the classic Jonin vest, and on top he wore a white cloak with flames that wrapped around the bottom and had mid-length sleeves. On the back, the kanji for 4th Hokage was written with bold red. On his feet he sported the regular navy blue ninja sandals, while on his forehead he wore the hidden leaf headband. "I suppose so," replied the redhead who stood on the first Hokage's face. She was around 5'4", had red hair with grayish blue eyes. She wore a dark gray sleeveless turtleneck with similar colored pants, and white bandages wrapped around her right thigh that thighs don't lie. Wrapped around her right thigh that I cannot speak. Wrapped around her right thigh that of her pants that held up a kunai pouch. On both arms, she wore dark gray sleeves that reached up 10 centimeters past her elbow, with the usual Anbu arm guard and Anbu chest plates, with a sheeted. Oh my god, how do you even say that? Sheeted, like when when it's inside, it's like cover. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Sheeted chokuto, which is like a straight sword. It's not a katana, but it's like a straight sword, attached to the back to the back of the chest plates. And on her feet she had shin-high dark gray Anbu sandals. Flying Thunder God, Guiding Thunder, the blonde said, holding a three-pronged kunai in front of his face as the fox blasted the bomb towards the village. Before it could hit the Hokage faces, it was absorbed, and an explosion appeared a few miles away from the village. Well, let's get on with it then, the blonde stated, jumping off the sun face. This is about to be fun, you know. The redhead known as Kushina yelled, replicating what the blonde had done. I think we will need to take down that masked man, the blonde told Kushina, plunging through the air while his hair and cloaks fluttered wildly. He's definitely the one controlling Kurama. And yes, Kushina did befriend Kurama in this what if. It's just that like she can't really use KCM, right? So just to make sure that they're not too OP in this, right? They did befriend Kurama. I'm just gonna say that. Gotcha, Minato. If I weren't in Uzumaki, I would have died already. Kushina pointed her head straight down, planning to get to the masked man first. Minato shook his head at the antics of his wife. He pulled out two three-pronged kunai from the kunai pouch attached to his right leg. While in a continuous dive, the blonde proceeded to throw one kunai towards the masked man and another towards the plummeting redhead, who grabbed the kunai and shoved it into the pouch on her leg. Well, wrapped around her, like attached to her thigh. Frick. Once the first kunai arrived at its destination, in a yellow flash, Minato arrived a few inches in front of the mystery man. The blonde swiftly grabbed the airborne kunai and tried to slit the mystery man's throat. But before Minato's attack could connect, the masked man swiped his hand over him. He froze. He floated in the air as though time had stopped around him. The mystery man circled the fourth with an unseen smirk under his mask. Ah, the masked man stated in an arrogant and mocking way. I guess it fights the almighty yellow flash of the leaf. The man stopped in front of the blonde's face and pulled out a kunai. Minato scowled at the man that rendered his speed useless. Minato continued to glare at the man as he noticed a red glow that came from the high O's on the man's mask. The source of light were from two blood-red Sharingan spinning in all their glory. But these eyes were different. Instead of the usual black tone, the space was occupied by a shape of a black three-pronged shuriken with the red dots in the center, and each prong with a similar red dots. And at the halfway points, a thin circle that wrapped around the eye. The Mangekyo, Minato thought, his eyes quivering. You have noticed my mighty eyes, the man chuckled, flaunting the Sharingan. Sadly for you, these eyes will be the last thing you see, Uchiha declared, trying to stab the fourth in the chest. But before the kunai could connect, it was blocked by a blade. The owner of the sword was a grinning redhead. The masked man jumped back, making some distance between him and Kushina. The blonde then fell on his face, surprised that he had been released from the masked man's grip. Minato then stood up, nodding his head towards the redhead. He asked the Mangekyo, the power must allow him to control the movements of people in some way. Minato said, filling Kushina in on what he figured out. His ability directly counters my flying Raijin, so this might be tough for me. But it seems that there is a way to get out of his grasp, the blonde added, using himself as an example. Wonderful, the Uchiha said in a mocking way. I get to fight the fourth Hokage and Kushina of the Waltzing Wind. Nice to meet you, Minato joked. And you are? The masked man chuckled. Oh, me? The man said with an unseen grin. I am just an old soul yet to be swept away by the broom of time. His Mangekyo spinning in all its glory. He has the legendary Mangekyo, an ability that renders flying Raijin useless, and hasn't used any jutsu yet. And he's also an Uchiha. No way, could he be? But he was quickly snapped out of his thoughts when he heard a scream. Okay, Gramps, Kushina yelled, chokeso in her right hand, while giving Minato the hand signal that meant they were going to use their seventh technique. The blonde smiled, observing his wife's outgoing nature. Shadow Clone Jutsu, the both of them yelled as 1,000 clones closed in on the Maxman from all direction. Yeah, they dare use such a pitiful jutsu against me and Uchiha. The supposed Gram scoffed as he began destroying the incoming clones. First, he sent a kick to one of the clones, sending it flying into its allies. Then quickly threw a raked kunai that exploded in the middle of the clones. He pulled out 2 more kunai running through the army, his hands moving so fast they became blurs. He then stopped and threw both of the kunai up in the air and extended his arms, placing a strain seal on 2 blondes, and as he shoved them back into the crowd, Uchiha then jumped upwards, raising his pointer finger and middle finger, causing the tagged blondes to explode. Then he performed a spin kick, releasing a slash of flames that expanded into a dome of raging inferno as it hits the army of blondes and redheads. The clones, thinking that he was in a state of weakness, lunged towards the still airborne man. Uchiha wanted to laugh at these insects' petty attempts. He quickly did a front flip, implanting a fist into the back of a redhead. He then violently spun his body, implanting a spinning foot into the face of the blondes and redheads. Then, using the momentum from his attack, he pushed down on the clone's back and performed a backflip, coming to a halt above the clones. Deciding that it was time to end this, the masked man inwardly said, breathing in a large amount of air, then releasing a sea of roaring flames that engulfed all the clones. Uchiha, believing he had finished the enemy, began diving back to the head of the beast. But then he sensed something. The masked man quickly turned around, his Sharingan leaving a blazing trail due to frightening levels of concentration. Facing the right direction, he found a blade heading towards his face. Uchiha quickly dodged to the side and used Kushina's arm as a platform to blast towards the direction of the kunai he had thrown earlier. But before he could grab the weapons, a 3-pronged kunai whizzed past where his hand would have been. Realizing what this was, he raised both his pointer and middle fingers of both his hands and put them in the cross position, creating a shadow clone. Just in time, the clone managed to pull its master away from the yellow flash that had tried to slice him. The now falling Uchiha quickly waved his hand slightly, touching the fourth's ankle. The masked man smirked under his mask. He stared straight at Minato, dropping back, deciding he would drop to the floor instead of the beast's head. And once again, the blonde was frozen in the air. The masked man pulled out 5 kunai, infusing them with wind chakra, then threw them, aiming for the blonde's hearts, lungs, kidney, and liver. Kushina, realizing that the blonde was in trouble, bent her knees, her legs filling with chakra, and then, in an instant, she disappeared and appeared in front of Minato, quickly deflecting all 5 kunai with her chokuto. The ability just used by the redhead was one of the reasons she was so well known in the ninja world. This was her Dance of the Wind. Due to Kushina's incredible control over wind chakra, she is able to condense the air in specific areas, making a transparent, solid, and yet springy platform that she can use to propel herself while in the air. Once the redhead had parried all the kunai, both her and the unfrozen Minato began falling towards the ground. By the way, they're gonna start fighting on the ground now, not Kurama's head. But this masked man, which keep in mind is not actually Obito this time, so I am changing some stuff. So now they're gonna fight on the ground, and the masked man actually sends Kurama to start destroying the village. Could it be that his freezing ability needs some sort of eye contact? The redhead asked as she dove through the sky. I doubt, Minato replied, also dashing through the sky at amazing speeds. If that was so, he would have used it on you as well. There must be another factor. Kushina nodded, understanding the opinion of her partner. I think we might want to step this up a notch, Kushina stated. Minato nodded, agreeing with this statement. How about technique number 5? Minato quickly nodded, agreeing with her decision. Still diving, he puts his fingers in a cross formation and created 2 shadow clones. one of himself and one of the redhead. Kushina then performed some strange hand signs, causing the blonde and redhead to fade out of existence, leaving only the two clones. The two posers began diving at incredible speeds. The blonde then threw three-pronged kunai in the direction of the masked man, and in a yellow flash he was gone. The entire battlefield flashed with bright yellow lights as the clone teleported to each kunai multiple times. The clone then appeared behind the masked man with a blue orb of spinning condensed chakra with a blue orb of spinning condensed chakra in its hand, and prepared to slam it into the masked man. Damn it, I cannot read. Oh, okay, I swear I should stop. I shouldn't even be reading. The Uchiha, being able to predict the movements of the clone, simply turned around, grabbed the wrist of the clone, and poured an immense amount of chakra into it, making the clone dispel into a puff of white smoke. It was then the masked man heard something from behind the wall of white smoke. "Wind's edge," the redhead whispered from behind the smoke screen, swinging her sword in a vertical motion, causing a blade of spiraling wind chakra to soar towards the Uchiha. The Uchiha, witnessing this, shivered with excitement, thinking that he might finally get to interesting fights. "Scorched out," the man said, and as he took a deep breath. "Flames curse," he exclaimed, releasing a blanket of flames that engulfed the sky along with the wind jutsu. "That thing can cover the whole sky," Kushina thought, but was snapped out of her daze, realizing that she was in danger. The redhead bent her knees, blasting forwards, but this wasn't enough to escape the range of the inferno. Once again, she kicked forward, and again, and again, and again, and finally emerged from behind the flames with a grin on her face. The redhead kicked the air once again, rocketing towards the masked man, and said, "Wind cutter." She swung her sword twice, creating a blade of wind chakra that took the shape of a large axe. The Uchiha chuckled at the sight of this jutsu and swiftly jumped to the side, avoiding the blast radius. But before he could land, he moved his head to the right, dodging the kunai aimed for his head. In a yellow flash, the fourth appeared behind the man with a cocked back hand and prepared to slam a Rasengan into the Uchiha's back. The masked man, seeing this jutsu again, simply ducked down, then jumped back up, implanting the top of his head into the fourth's chin. He followed up with a punch to Minato's face, sending the blonde flying. He then appeared in front of Minato, deciding it was time to end the battle. He drew his two daggers and then wait, what? He drew his two daggers and held them in each hand. Okay, so I'm too lazy to to describe the daggers, so I'm just gonna put it on the screen right here. So yeah, that's it. I hope I put in the right picture, cause like, yeah. The Uchiha lunged at Minato, preparing to stab him, but when the dagger connected, Naruto Shadow Clone poof sound effects. "Damn it," the masked man said to himself, "a substitution." The Uchiha's dagger was now inserted into a rock that had a strange mark on it. Then, without warning, a yellow and red colored flash appeared in front of the masked man. The next thing the Uchiha saw was a sword covered with swirling wind chakra that made a slight whooshing sound, slight whooshing sound, like almost like a breeze, headed towards his neck. The masked man wondered where the blonde who used the flying Raijin had gone. He quickly removed his dagger from the stone and stopped the incoming chakra infused blade. He then swung the dagger in his left hand, aiming for Kushina's stomach. But when the attack connected, his hand was flung with almost double the force he had put into the attack. So practically what happened here is that, like, Kushina used her like that ability for wind chakra, how she can bounce off it. So instead she put it like as an armor kind of. So when the guy tried to like slice him, it just like bounced back technically. The red had taken advantage of this mistake, swiped the Uchiha's foot. tried to swipe the Uchiha's foot, but the masked man simply jumped upwards, avoiding the attack. A grin formed on Kushina's face. He has fallen into their trap. The redhead, using the motion from her foot sweep, continued into a chakra enhanced kick that sent the Uchiha flying. In an instant, a three-pronged kunai zipped above the masked man and zipped the cost above the masked man. A yellow flash appeared, and Minato appeared. A yellow flash was seen, and Minato appeared above the Uchiha. He then made the Rasengan, but didn't stop there. He began to channel more and more chakra into it. "Compressed Rasengan!" the blonde yelled, driving this Rasengan into the masked man, pushing the Uchiha into the ground, creating a huge crater in the process. So he's practically just doing what he did in the original to Obito. Minato quickly jumped back, making some distance between him and the now defeated enemy. "Let's hurry up and get Kurama sealed back into you," the blonde said to Kushina. The redhead nodded. Said to Kushina. The redhead nodded in agreement, turning around to head towards the village where the fox was still rampaging. But before they could go any further, they heard something coming from behind them. "Where do you think you're going?" As dusk cleared, the Uchiha slowly walked out, his clothes slightly tattered. The snout area of his mask kind of chunked off, revealing a smile of someone who was having a great time. Minato gasped in surprise. Not just did the Uchiha get hit by his compressed Rasengan, but he could still smile after that. "This," the Uchiha chuckled, dusting off his clothes, "shall be interesting." In an instant, he was gone. In an instant, he was gone. Before they could blink, he appeared behind Kushina, preparing to slice her across the back with his dagger. Before the blade could reach its target, the sound of kunai clashing was heard all over the battlefield. The blonde had intercepted the incoming attack, but did not expect this amount of strength from the Uchiha. Could he have been hiding his strength the whole time? The blonde thought in confusion as the two men struggled against each other. A grin formed on the Uchiha's face. Even at this much power, you can still keep. Before the masked man finished his statements, Kushina swung her chokuto, aiming for the man's dagger-holding hand. The Uchiha's head swung towards the redhead as his eyes began to glow. The redhead, realizing what the Uchiha was trying to do, quickly closed her eyes, but it was already too late. Kushina scanned her surrounding. The sky in this place was red with black clouds. It was a blood-red moon. Okay, sorry about the background noise. My sister is running down the stairs for some reason. The redhead looked downwards, realizing that she propped up to a T-shaped pillar that cuffed her outstretched arms and legs. She then looked towards the direction of the Uchiha. "What is this?" Kushina asked, getting angry that she was tied up. "In the world of Tsukiyomi," the masked man said, stabbing the redhead in the stomach with a katana. Kushina let out a groan of pain. "It's time, space, and substance are all controlled by me." So practically the same thing as in when Itachi does the Tsukiyomi on Kakashi happens here. What seemed to be a second later, in the real world, Kushina dropped to the ground, trembling. Minato, realizing something was wrong, tore away from the clash, picked up Kushina, and jumped backwards, creating some space between him and the Uchiha. "What happened, Kush?" Before he could finish, a dagger came rocketing towards his neck. Minato, noticing the attack, teleported to a kunai he had left somewhere else on the battlefield. "Let me down," the still trembling redhead said to Minato. "Are you sure?" The blonde questioned. Kushina nodded her head. The blonde then bent down, lowering Kushina on the ground. But before he could, the Uchiha appeared in front of them and tried to slash Minato's arm. The blonde, having fast reflexes, instantly jumped backwards. The masked man jumped towards Minato, attacking once again, trying to keep up the pressure. The force slightly shifted his body, avoiding the attack. And also keep in mind that he still has Kushina in his arms right now. The masked man then swung his other dagger with all his might, aiming for the weakened redhead. The fourth, realizing that he wouldn't be able to dodge, teleported away from the battlefield. Their new location, unknown mountains. What happened, Kushina? Minato questioned. Could this be the effect of Kurama being extracted such a long time ago? Kushina shook her head. That is one of the reasons. But that man, Kushina murmured, slightly shaking her head, tortured me for what seemed like 300 hours. Minato was shocked. When did this happen? All he knew was that 1 second he was fighting alongside Kushina, and the next second she was on the ground. Then it hit him, a Sharingan, and not just that, a Mangekyo. It must have been a Genjutsu. Where are we? The redhead asked, the tremble in her voice nearly gone. We are in the mountain range I used for my training. Before he knew, Kushina's fist had connected to the back of his head, and the blonde was on the ground with three steaming bumps stacked on top of each other. We have to get back to the village, the redhead yelled, staggering slightly as she stood up. We have to protect the village. Half of the village might already be destroyed at this point. And so quickly nodded, not wanting to get into a fight with an angry female anime character. The blonde held Kushina's hand, and in a yellow flash, they were gone. Location now, partially destroyed Hidden Leaf Village, or like the battlefield where they're fighting. In a yellow flash, Minato and Kushina appeared back to where they had once been fighting. Kushina looked towards the fox that was still rampaging in the village. Took you a while, a voice said from the middle of the field. If it took any longer, I might have fallen asleep. The Uchiha stood up from his sitting position and patted his buttocks. Let's get this over with, the masked man said, gripping his daggers tightly. This shall be the final clash. The redhead looked towards her partner. Let's go all out, Kushina said. I'm almost out of time. I feel he's been holding interesting, said the Uchiha, who was now in front of the redhead's face. Let's see how your full power matches with mine. The masked man swung his wind-covered dagger, the blade racing towards the redhead's throat. Once again, the blonde intercepted the Uchiha's attack, but this time, the blade of the three-pronged kunai was covered in a thick amount of lightning chakra. So practically, it almost looks like an Excalibur, like it has a bit of extra. It's like, you know how like Excaliburs have like that blue light thingy? Yeah, it's practically like that. So he's just like using lightning chakra, and I know he doesn't really do this in the original, but gotta be creative sometimes, you know. As the attack connected, Minato tried his hardest to keep a hold of the Uchiha. Kushina, go use your transformation, Minato yelled to the redhead. I'll hold him back. Kushina nodded and disappeared from view. Now it's you and me, Minato said, trying his best not to look into the Uchiha's eyes. The masked man simply chuckled. With your current level of power, I doubt that you're going to beat me. This time, Minato was the one to chuckle. You weren't the only one holding back, Minato said, closing his eyes. In an instant, an immense amount of power erupted from the fourth. A yellow pigment then formed underneath his eyes. The blonde was giving off a completely different aura than what he previously was. Minato had entered Sage Mode. Due to my increased sensory ability in this mode, I'll be able to keep my eyes closed, so making it so that I don't have to worry about his genjutsu, the blonde thought to himself. How interesting, the masked man stated, getting more excited as time went by. The blonde and Uchiha separated, the Uchiha observing his opponents, and the blonde standing completely still. The masked man decided to make the first move. He threw his dagger in the direction of the blonde, who dodged with ease. The masked man then appeared in front of Minato, and swung the chakra-enhanced dagger in his left hand, aiming for the fourth's throat. Minato pulled out a kunai and added lightning chakra and sage energy into the weapon. Using this Excalibur, he blocked the Uchiha's attack. The impact of the two blades colliding caused a massive shockwave that shook the entire battlefield. The Uchiha jumped to the side, grabbing the dagger he had previously thrown, and swung it in the direction of the blonde. Minato, sensing the attack, jumped upwards, dodging the attack. While still in the air, the blonde pulled out 4 three-pronged kunai and threw them threw them towards the Uchiha, who simply weaved through all the projectiles. In a flash, the blonde was gone. He teleported to each of the still airborne kunai, trying to slit the opponent's throat, but the Maxman was able to dodge any fatal blow. He also teleported in front of the Maxman, trying to slam a Rasengan into him, but the Uchiha jumped backwards, dodging the attack, or so he thought. Without any warning, another blonde jumped through the ground, preparing to catch the Uchiha. So this is the real one, the Maxman thought. Sensing the other blonde that had just popped out of the ground behind him, the Uchiha swung around, trying to slice the blonde behind him. When the attack reached, the force burst into lightning, paralyzing the man. The Uchiha snapped his head in the direction of the blonde he had been fighting originally. Then suddenly the blonde disappeared in a puff of smoke. That was a shadow clone. The Uchiha gasped as a three-pronged kunai whizzed past his face. Another blonde appeared in front of the masked man and tried to slam a Rasengan into him. Once again, the Uchiha jumped to the side, avoiding the attack, but when he landed, his feet began to sink under the ground. Secret technique, double suicide. The voice came from the hand that pulled him under the ground. Damn it, the masked man said to himself, scanning the area for something to substitute with. The plan worked, said a voice from behind the smoke that had been left by Pose's shadow clone. The Uchiha was shocked when the blonde that had tried to Rasengan him poofed into white smoke. Minato jumped away from the almost half-buried Uchiha, realizing his job was complete. It seems like even with the Sharingan, he can't tell the difference between myself and a shadow clone if I equalize the chakra among them. Minato stated, staring at the Uchiha. Okay, so practically what happened here, if you guys are confused, is that so he was fighting the guy originally, right? But then, when I said he poofed, right, Minato actually used a, smoke bomb to make him believe that wasn't a real shadow, make him believe that was a shadow clone. Then that other blonde came in, tried to Rasengan him. The other Minato came in, tried to Rasengan him, making him think that was the real one. But then he would dodge away, but then the real one was actually still there. And then there was another guy underneath trying to pull him under, technically. So yeah, if you understand it, then yeah. But practically, he just outsmarted the guy. That's what happened here. Kushina, who had been gathering up her chakra, realized that this was her cue. She stood up from her meditating position and raised her middle and pointed fingers in front of her face and whispered something to herself. Her entire body was slowly covered by Her entire body was slowly covered by a cloak of raging wind. As the veil completely covered her body, it calmed down, leaving a thin layer of condensed wind chakra around her. The redhead now resembled a goddess. Her figure levitated slightly in the air, as though it was the most normal thing to do, her red hair waving lazily and her eyes giving off a slight red glow. The redhead then looked towards the Uchiha, her eyes slightly glowing. She then bent her knees. The muscles on her leg expanded powerfully as they filled with chakra. The air around her lashed out violently. The Uchiha, noticing this, struggled to rip loose from the ground. Kushina shot forward like a bullet, leaving a trail of red as she cut through the sky. In an instant, she was in front of her struggling prey, with her blade raised high. Arashi, she whispered, bringing her blade down. The Uchiha's mind raced. There was no way he was getting hit by that attack. He instantly channeled chakra into the sole of his feet. The area around him began to glow. Then, he blasted upwards, fire coming out from the bottom of his feet. Kushina stopped in her tracks, crouched down, and powerfully jumped into the air. What the heck is that ability, the Max Band thought, a bit impressed by his opponents. Kushina drew her sword back, preparing to attack once again. The Uchiha was not having it. He went through multiple hand seals, took in a deep breath, then, Scorch style, beauty of the eternal dragon, the Uchiha said to himself, releasing a great dragon made of flame that opened its jaws and prepared to swallow Kushina whole. The redhead tilted her body and kicked off the air, avoiding the jaws of the beast. Seeing this, the Uchiha grinned, then he snapped his fingers. Snap. And the dragon turned in the direction of Kushina, chasing her down. Don't forget about me, a voice said from above him. The Uchiha swung around and found at least 100 Minatos that all had giant Rasengans in their hand. Odama Rasengan barrage! All the blondes yelled, slamming the Rasengans into the enemy. The Uchiha got blown backwards, falling through the air. Kushina noticed this and kicked the air again, the dragon still tailing her. Wicked wind, she whispered. Before he knew, the Uchiha felt a violet blade slash his back. The redhead quickly turned around, bending her knees in the air, and sprung back, slicing the Uchiha's chest, leaving a trail of red where she had been. Then she cut his arm, the side of his neck, calf, shoulder, feet, face. Kushina stopped her relentless attack and appeared above the Uchiha. She raised her leg and sent it into the Maxman's stomach. The Uchiha shot downwards and hit the ground, causing a cloud of dust to rise up. Okay, so practically this is Kushina's strongest ability. So what it allows her to do is that she can use that ability to bounce off the air bounce off the air to bounce around technically and slash the opponent in the center. So as she bounces around, she becomes faster, right? So it's like an onslaught. But then whoever she's attacking, she's going so fast, she's practically leaving a trail of red around because of her red hair. So yeah, that's what this attack is. Kushina landed on the floor, some distance between her and the crater she had made. The veil around her slowly faded away. The redhead stuck her fist out to the side, and the yellow flashed. Minato appeared next to her and bumped it with his own fist. The redhead fell to the ground. She was exhausted. "You've done well," Minato whispered, praising his wife. "Now, let's get Kurama sealed back into you for real this time." The redhead smiled at Minato. But then they heard. The blonde head shot backwards with an interest. The blonde head shot backwards. "What an interesting ability," proclaimed a voice from inside the crater. To push me to this point." The voice came from okay, so practically the guy used I'm not sure, is it Izanagi or Izanami? I think it's Izanagi, the one that changes your destiny or whatever. The voice came from the masked man standing in the middle of the crater. "How?" Minato said out loud. "It's simple," declared the voice. Minato spun around, finding the Uchiha behind him. "You didn't give me a chance to go all out." In an instant, the blonde was on the ground with 3 gaping holes in his body. Minato coughed out blood. "What? There's no way." The Uchiha chuckled. "Oh, it's all too true. This isn't good," the blonde thought to himself, and made multiple sturdy shadow clones that he made fight the masked man. "I'm out of time," Kushina whispered. "Even if we seal Kurama back into me now, I'll just end up dying still. Take me to Naruto. You know what we must take me to Naruto. You know what we Bruh, I cannot talk. Take me to Naruto. You know what we Oh my god. Take me to Naruto. You know what we must do. Is that a tongue twister? Okay, you guys try saying that. And comment below if you could actually do it. Take me to Naruto. You know what we must do. Comment below if you were able to actually say that. Say it 10 times fast. If you're able to do it, comment down below. If you're not, still comment down below. A blonde nodded. He then teleported away. Location in front of the rampaging QB. Location in front of the rampaging QB with Naruto. With baby Naruto, I should say. Newborn Naruto. Kid Naruto. Yeah, okay. "I didn't think things would end like this," Minato stated, staring into the eyes of the wife. "Yeah, me either," Kushina replied. "So Kurama will be the one taking care of Naruto?" Minato asked. "Or is it more like we're leaving Naruto to take care of Kurama?" The redhead let out a tiny giggle. "Let me down," Kushina said. In response, the blonde gently laid her on the ground. "Chain Force devastation," the lame damsel whispered. A few seconds later, hundreds of golden chains rocketed from the ground, pinning down the QB. "And you believe I'll allow you to do such a thing?" the masked man stated, walking towards the dying couple. Minato, moving only because of will to protect, put his hand in the cross-shaped and yelled, Shadow Clone Jutsu. He created another 3 durable shadow clones that ate up most of his remaining chakra, and proceeded to send them to scrap with the Uchiha. He then turned around to face his 2 loved ones. Kushina noticed the hand signs and let out a little smile. Sorry about that, that was my sister. Always wanted to try new things, the redhead said. Minato grinned. He then clapped his hands together and whispered under his breath, Reaper Detsio. Finishing his words, a strange figure only visible to the caster of the jutsu appeared behind the 4 blondes. So that means him and the shadow clones as well. I think you guys can see where I'm going with this. It was a being with pasty purple skins, fangs that held a blade with the handle made out of wrapped cloth, wore a grey cloak that covered its whole body, covered its whole body, and in its left hand a chain of red beads, and in front of its body a chakra in the shape of a human figure. This being is the Shinigami, the god of death. Minato turned around, noticing the Shinigami. A faint smile formed on his lips. Then he said in a strong voice, Seal! In an instant the Shinigami's arm extended, passing right through the blonde stomach and zipping towards the Nine-Tails. As the arm arrived, it pulled out a glowing light blue fox. It quickly retracted its hand and sealed this blue figure into Minato, creating a swirl-shaped seal with 8 lines branching out across his stomach. He then bent down, placing his right hand on the ground. Next is the 8-sign seal. In a puff of smoke, an octagon-shaped stone floor with a white squared cushion on top appeared. As this was happening, the Minato clones were busy in a tug of war, trying to rip out the soul of the Uchiha. The Uchiha struggled against the inevitable. There were 3 clones that had summoned Shinigami, and against a single human. It was impossible for him to win. All that was extracted at the moment were the arms of the Uchiha. This can't be happening, the masked man whispered under his breath. This must be. This jutsu, it must be. The plot armor no jutsu. There's no way I'm gonna die right now, he said. If I'm gonna die, then I'm gonna take them along with me. As he said this, he stared in the direction. As he said this, he stared in the direction of the fox, with his eyes bleed. As he said this, he stared in the direction of the fox. Instantly, the QB's, bro, my reading is just getting worse as this thing goes. Instantly, the QB's head snapped in the direction of the man about to seal him in a baby. Instantly, the QB's claw drove forward, aiming for the newborn. Swiftly, the 2 figures appeared between the fox and the child. The fox and their child, taking the full brunt of the attack. These 2 figures were Minato and Kushina. Seeing the nail that was able to penetrate his opponents, seeing the claw was successfully able to penetrate, seeing that he was able to successfully kill his opponents, a sinister smile floated across the Uchiha's face as he continued to struggle against the Shinigami. With the Uchiha weakening, the Genjutsu on the QB wore off. I will kill the human who tried to use him. Before the fox could finish his sentence, he realized what was going on. Don't worry about it, Kurama, the redhead whispered, patting the claw that stuck through her body as though it belonged to a long-lost pet. I know you don't like this. I know you don't like being sealed away, but Kushina continued. Could you please take care of our child, Naruto? Why would you ever ask such a thing? The QB roared. Of course I would. Of course I will. Both the blonde and redhead smiled. In that case, Kurama, the fourth said, as he slowly went through hand seals, I will make sure that we can meet you and Naruto once again. Finishing the jutsu, the monstrous fox disappeared, and the 2 figures dropped to the floor, facing each other with a smile on their faces. What was once the Nine-Tailed had become floating orb of condensed red chakra. The ball stayed completely still for a few seconds, then slowly began to approach the baby. When it arrived above the baby, it gracefully floated down. It gracefully floated and seemingly entered the boy's body, creating a swirl-shaped seal similar to the one on his dad. Bro, I was trying to say that. Creating a swirl-shaped seal similar to the one on his dad. I guess it's not that bad. It seems our job is over, the blonde whispered with a slight grin. Kushina slowly nodded. I guess so, she replied. Both their life was slowly fading away. Now we get to 5 minutes after Kushina and Minato's death. And keep in mind right now that Uchiha guy is like Orochimaru's hands were like just sliced off, right? So it's just how do I say it? It's just like so what happened to the masked man right now is that he's on the floor lying there because he's has both his hands like damaged, right? Just like how Orochimaru did. So now it's 5 minutes after Minato and Kushina died. Yeah. The scene was an old man who wore traditional battle armor and held a black staff with golden ends, or more commonly known as the third Hokage. He ran up to the blonde and redhead Lane, quickly trying to find a pulse. They're dead, the Hokage whispered to himself, kind of saddened, but a slight smile formed on his face when he realized the breadth of expression on the faces of the two. He then walked over to the platform in front of them. He gasped when he saw the baby that looked just like the fourth. He reached out trying to grab the baby, but before he reached, he saw something written on the platform. It said, "This message will activate when it comes in contact with your chakra. If you're reading this, then surely you're the third, or Kakashi. The child you stand before is Minato and Kushina's son." The old man let out a small gasp, looking towards the boy. "His name is Naruto, and I request that you take care of him. P.S. He's a Jinchuriki of the nine toes." Sarutobi was gobsmacked. This is the kid of the strongest ninja in the village, and the Jinchuriki of the strongest tailed beast. He is destined to be strong, or so Hiruzen thought. The old man then began to scan his surroundings, looking for anything noteworthy. That's when he realized a masked man laying on the ground. He quickly rushed over, wondering who this person could be. Hiruzen recognized this mask. This was the person that was controlled. This was the person that conducted the QB attack. "Who are you?" Hiruzen said, questioning the masked man. "That is none of your business," the Uchiha said, laying on the ground. Hiruzen walked towards the masked man, wanting to reveal his true identity, but before his hand could reach, before he could remove the Uchiha's mask, a hand gripped his wrist tightly. The old man noticed it and just quickly jumped back, creating some space between himself and the new enemy. What the heck? The figure wore a one-eyed orange mask, which had a warped design. He was also dressed in a black cloak that covered the bottom half of his mask, as well as all 6 feet of his body. This new mystery man then bent down and stared straight into the eyes of the Uchiha. "You were a fool for conducting such a plan," this new masked man said. "How dare you speak to me like that? How dare you speak to me that way?" Before he could finish his statements, a wound opened up in the man's throat, and he seemingly died. This new masked man then turned in the direction of the Hokage, turning his and you, the new masked man said, turning his head to the confused Okage can call me Madara Uchiha. As he finished his bold statements, he unleashed amounts of chakra and killing intent that made the man known as the god of shinobi of his time take a few steps back. The self-proclaimed Madara then turned around. The third, thinking this was his chance, lunged forwards, his staff above his head. But before his attack could connect, the man waved his right hand and the portal opened up. And in what seemed like slow motion, he walked in, and the portal closed, leaving no proof of his existence.